Have you ever really stopped to think about the meal on your plate? I mean, really think about it? Not just where you bought it, but the incredible scientific journey it took to even exist. Well, that's what we're diving into today, the amazing science behind the food that fuels all of us. And look, this isn't just some abstract question. It's one of the single biggest challenges we face as a planet. Our population is absolutely booming, and the demand for food is just off the charts. To keep up, we've had to get really, really smart about how we grow things. So for this explainer, I want you to put on a different hat. You're not just a viewer anymore. You are a modern farmer, and your job? To grow, nurture, and protect a harvest that can help feed the world. Sound good? Okay, let's get our hands dirty. So, where does your journey begin? Not in a field, not with a tractor, but with one tiny, incredibly important choice: the seed. Any good farmer will tell you a great harvest is basically impossible if you don't start with the best seed you can get. The first major tool in your kit is something called hybridization. It's kind of like matchmaking for plants. You take one plant that has a trait you love, say it's really tough, and you crossbreed it with another plant that has a different great trait. Maybe it produces a ton of fruit. The goal is that their offspring will have the best qualities from both parents. And if you think this sounds like science fiction, get this. Scientists actually did this with a tomato and a potato plant to create something called the pomato. It is a single plant that literally grows tomatoes up top and potatoes in the ground. I mean, how cool is that? It's a perfect real-world example of hybridization at work. But maybe you want to be even more precise. That's where genetic modification comes in. Instead of just breeding two plants and kind of hoping for the best, this technique allows scientists to go directly into a plant's DNA. They can actually insert a single specific gene for a trait you want, like, say, making a crop naturally resistant to certain insects. It's like performing surgery to upgrade a seed. So why go through all this trouble for a tiny seed? Well, as a farmer, your goals are crystal clear. You want higher yields, more food from the same amount of land. You want better quality. You need your crops to resist threats, both living things like pests, that's biotic, and non-living things like drought, that's abiotic. And you need them to be adaptable to different climates. A better seed is, without a doubt, the foundation for everything else. All right, so you've picked out your super seed. Fantastic. But your work has really just begun. Now you have to be a master of the environment to help that little seed grow and thrive. You know, just like us, plants need a balanced diet. They pull their food from the soil, and these nutrients fall into two main groups. First, you've got macronutrients, like nitrogen and phosphorus. Think of these as the main course. Plants need a lot of them for their basic structure and energy. Then you have micronutrients, like iron and zinc. These are more like vitamins. They're needed in really tiny amounts, but for super specific and essential jobs. But what if your soil is kind of running low on those nutrients? Well, you've got two main options to feed it. You can use manure. It's organic, it releases nutrients slowly, and it's fantastic for the long-term health of your soil. Or you could use chemical fertilizers. They give your plants a really fast, powerful boost, but if you're not careful and use too much, they can cause some serious problems, like water pollution. Now, this next technique is one of the smartest and oldest tricks in the farming playbook: crop rotation. Instead of just sucking all the nutrients out of your soil, you switch things up. So one year you might plant a heavy feeder like corn that uses up a lot of nitrogen, but the next year you plant something like beans, which actually puts nitrogen back into the soil. It's this brilliant, natural way to keep your land healthy and productive without adding a thing. And we can't forget about water, right? In so many parts of the world, water is like gold. So instead of the old method of just flooding an entire field, modern farmers use something called drip irrigation. These are basically pipes that deliver water one single drop at a time, right to the base of each plant. It is incredibly efficient and saves a ton of water. Okay, let's check in. Your crops are looking great. They're tall, they're healthy, they're almost ready. But don't celebrate just yet, because now you're facing what might be your biggest challenge of all: protecting your investment from everything out there that wants to destroy it. See, as a farmer, you are in a constant war against three main types of enemies. You got weeds, these unwanted plants that pop up and steal sunlight, water, and nutrients from your crops. You've got insects that can chew through roots, stems, and leaves, sometimes wiping out a whole field. And then you have the invisible invaders, pathogens. These are tiny microbes like bacteria and fungi that can cause devastating diseases. And here's the thing, even after you've successfully harvested your crops, the battle is still not over. It is shocking how much of the world's food supply is lost after it leaves the field. Making sure your crops are stored properly, protected from moisture, from big temperature swings, from pests, is absolutely critical. Otherwise, all that hard work just goes to waste. Okay, so your fields are thriving, but a modern farm is often way more than just crops. Let's expand our operation and talk about raising animals, because you're about to see the exact same ideas of scientific improvement at play here too. When it comes to cattle farming, you're usually specializing. On one hand, you have milch animals. These are females, your dairy cows, specifically raised to produce as much milk as possible. On the other hand, you have draught animals. These are typically males, like oxen, used for their pure muscle and strength to do hard farm labor like plowing. And hey, just like we saw with plants, you can crossbreed animals to get the best of both worlds. So, for instance, a farmer might take a foreign breed of cow that produces a ton of milk and breed it with a local cow that's super resistant to all the local diseases. The dream is to get an offspring that has both of those amazing traits, making the whole herd stronger and more productive. This same kind of specialization happens in poultry farming, and it's down to a science. You've got your broilers, which are chickens raised for meat. They're fed a really protein-rich diet, so they grow to market size in just a few weeks. Then you have your layers. They're raised for one thing and one thing only, laying eggs. Their diet is calculated to perfection to help them lay as many eggs as possible. And you know what? This kind of innovation even extends underwater. One of the most efficient ways to farm fish is a system called composite fish culture. This is where you raise a bunch of different fish species all together in the exact same pond. Now you might be thinking, wait, won't they just compete for food? Well, the solution is just simple and brilliant. You choose species that feed in different zones of the water. So one type of fish might feed on stuff at the surface, another prefers to eat in the middle of the pond, and a third species is a bottom feeder. They all live together in harmony, not competing for food at all. It's like creating a perfectly balanced ecosystem in a single pond. So when you take a step back, you can see that all of these techniques we've talked about, from GMO seeds to fish farming, they're all part of a much bigger story. In the past, we had the Green Revolution, which used technology to send crop yields soaring. Then came the White Revolution, which did the same for milk production. What we've just gone over, well, that's the science that defines modern farming today. So the next time you sit down for dinner, just take a second to remember all this. The food on your plate, it didn't just appear there. It's the amazing end result of a